What is up, everybody? Nico Games here, and welcome back to Amorous. Now, in the last episode, we did some stuff with Seth. We got to see Seth's story that we helped him write, or that we inspired him to write. We got it looked at by the author, Nick Kovac, at the library, and we deepened their relationship. There's definitely something between Samuel and Seth, and let's see where else this is gonna go. Alright, so, yeah. Yeah, I already read that. Okay, so, our next few meetings were sadly short and very business-oriented. Seth wouldn't let me come over until he had, in his words, cleansed the apartment from ceiling to floor at least twice. Despite my insistence that not everything needed to be perfect, there was no swaying him. That said, he kept to his promise and called me often. When we weren't at coffee talking about his work on the story, he was de-drafting. Finally, the day arrived. Seth greeted me at the coffee shop with a smile that just wouldn't quit. Alright, I believe my domicile is once again right enough for the world to accept guests. I know you've been patient with that, Samuel. Thank you. I wanted everything to be absolutely perfect. Seth, you didn't have to go overboard with this. I'm not going to judge you on the cleanliness of your apartment. I mean, you've been to my house. Need I say more? Can't I just go a little overboard? I mean, you're helping me with my writing. I've been more prolific recently than I've been in years. I like to think that I had something to do with that. Still, I'm more than happy to come over. Should I bring anything? I'll leave that completely up to you. I should have everything covered, but I'm certainly not adverse to your personal touch. Alright then, I'll give it some thought. Were we going over another story today? Your bag doesn't seem to be bulging with notebooks as per usual. No, not today. I've been a little too busy doing some other last-minute things before tonight. Oh, our date! I wanted to make sure that everything was just right, and, well, I forgot to write anything recently. Phew. Huh? I was hoping to see what you had come up with next. I particularly liked the last bit of short fiction you did. Thanks! I was trying something new with the narration approach, and glad to hear you liked it. But I've also been talking your ear off about writing lately. How are things with you? Oh, well... I'm sorry, I'm still kind of sick, as I said last time. So I will be right back, because I need to blow my nose. Alrighty, I am back. So, how are we doing? We'll say great. I've been hearing back from a few places about a job. Trying to stay active and positive. Aside from that, not much else. My day-to-day is fairly mundane. Better a comfortable, humdrum life than to live the ancient Chinese curse, as it were. I'll get by. Kobe's been asking if you're going to stop by again. He seems to like you quite a bit. I like him too. Even when he gets a little flirty, I can see why he's a big part of your life. There's been one thing you haven't talked about. Did Nick's agent ever get back in touch with you? Not yet. These things do take time, and I know there's no way to rush it. It's just that the waiting is agony. I'll do my best to distract you from that as much as possible tonight then. Should I come in my suit and tie? black tie is completely optional. Though, imagining you in formal wear is a very pleasing image. Haha! You should see me out of one. Flatterer. Flattery will get you almost everywhere with me. More flattery will get you rest of the way. I'm a writer. I can flatter you in 5 different ways and with excessive alliteration. No, stop. I'm like putty in your hands already. The both of us swiftly broke down into giggles. After a moment and another sip of coffee, I composed myself. I must say, you were certainly overselling the date here. I feel as though I'm going to be completely underprepared for what you have in store. I wouldn't say completely, but I do hope to inspire some awe. Is there anything I should bring? Anything I should do to prepare myself for this experience? Being that this is the first real date we've had, at least in my humble opinion, I've gone to great lengths to make it self-sufficient. All I require is your attendance at 6-ish at my place, which, may I point out, you still haven't told me the address or location of. Oh, right! I suppose I got a little ahead of myself there. He fishes through his bag for a moment and produces a slip of paper, quickly scribbling down his information. Now, don't follow in my footsteps and throw this in the wash. If you're late, I'll call you to check in, so keep your phone on. Yes, sir. If we don't have any writing critique then, did you want to grab some lunch or something? No dating until tonight. I don't want to spoil it. It's just lunch. We can chat about non-romantic things like the weather, or the current state of sports ball. Besides, you can't have too much thing and then not want it anymore. At least, I hope you can. I know I'm being a little silly, but you've done so much for me, intentionally or not. I want our first serious date to be perfect. Alright, just don't get your expectations too high. We're both just people after all. He smiled at me, taking my hand in his for a moment. It was nice, just to be together in one place without obligations. That was what worried me most about tonight, what he might be expecting. I never considered how dangerous it might be dating a guy who likely got most of his ideas from reading romance novels. I promise, it's all well in hand and a comfortable level of hope. He glanced up at the clock over the counter, and his smile shifted suddenly to a look of concern. Is that the time? Sorry, Samuel, I need to run. Just the last few things I need to do to finish before our date. Now, you've got the time and address? I nodded, patting the pocket where I had stowed both. Good. Now I expect you there promptly. I've got plans that are very time specific. I'll be at your door at 6 on the dot. Probably with bells on. Stick with the fancy clothes. Unless you're only wearing the bells. He got a bit of a blush out of me, both from his comment and the soft peck on the cheek he gave me before he stood up and placed the 10 on the table. Coffee's on me today. I'll see you tonight. Oh, good lord, this is adorable. I sipped slowly at my coffee, nursing it and the growing knot I felt in my belly. My relationship with Seth so far had one strange encounter after another. I could only imagine what he had planned for tonight. Still, I wasn't about to pass up the chance to find out. not when it meant finding out more about this adorably eccentric feline. Of course, without our critique session, most of my afternoon was empty. Kobe was out with some friends, and I had the house to myself. I could only putter around for so long before I found myself staring at the closet and wondering what I should wear. I noticed my suit hanging in the corner of the closet and briefly considered it. That is, until I remembered the last time I wore it and how poorly it fit. I couldn't believe I'd kept it. Still, I had plenty of other choices remaining and grabbed something I would be more comfortable in. After I'd gotten myself cleaned up, dressed, and looking my best, my thoughts drifted back to the date. Seth said I didn't have to bring anything, but maybe I should anyway. Do we bring wine, do we bring flowers, or skip it? We'll bring wine. A nice bottle of wine would probably make for a good date gift. I could swing by the store on the way to his place and pick up something. Of course, he hadn't told me what was on the menu for tonight. I'd just have to wing it. Once I'd gotten myself together and made my decision, I looked down at the clock. It was getting awfully close to 6, and I hadn't left yet. I grabbed my keys, locked the house up, and got into my car. I'm excited to see what's going on. I'm excited to see what this date is like. Stop for one. I pulled into a parking space at the store and darted in through the door and straight to the wine selection. I was overwhelmed by the choices, and without knowing what it would be served with, I was at a loss. Fortunately, a friendly clerk helped me out and suggested a desert wine to finish off the date. I thanked him and grabbed a bottle of a light sweet wine and rushed off to the register. By the time I had made it back to the car, I noticed I was going to be running a little late. Hopefully the gift would help him make up for my tardiness. I made my way through the lobby and up the well-appointed elevators. It appeared that Seth hadn't been kidding about being a trust fund kid. The apartment building itself was ritzier than my hope. Once I had gotten to his door, after checking the note twice, I knocked. Just a minute. I heard some scrambling, a few muttered expletives, and finally the sounds of metal pans colliding with wooden cupboards. Pans. I was about to express my concern when didn't get to read that. Samuel, good of you to make it. I seem to recall something about saying you should be prompt. It was for a good cause, I promise. We'll see how true that statement is. Well, what do you think of the place? Once inside, it was clear that Seth wasn't kidding about his apartment. Despite the rather posh interior of the building, his own apartment was very sparsely furnished. Aside from a few pictures and bric-a-brac, the living room held only a couch, coffee table, and TV on a stand. It's nice, simple, clean. Seth smiled at me before sitting down on a steaming pot on the small dining room table. Devoid of any sense that a person actually lives here. Everyone's got their own tastes. Speaking of which, where did you learn how to cook? It smells delicious. Thanks! I cannot take all the credit, however. Most of it goes to the cooking channel and the cookbook I snagged from the library. Aw. Of course, I wasn't sure what you might like to eat, so I may have gone a little overboard in terms of available dishes. That's alright. It's why they invented resealable containers and microwaves. I'm impressed, though. You said you hadn't really ever cooked. He chuckled and took my hand, leading me to the spread laid out on the table. Again, he wasn't much kidding. There were half a dozen dishes crammed into the small space. Rolls were neatly nestled in a basket, and 3 different types of spreads, from savory to sweet, laid out on the kitchen counter. You made all this? For just the 2 of us? Turns out, being rather new to cooking, I wasn't aware of portion size. I mean, I thought it was quite a bit of food when I got the ingredients, but I guess I assumed it would condense, or reduce, whatever it is chefs do to food. Man, I could take leftovers and you'd still be set for a while. Be sure to save room for dessert. I baked three dozen cookies. My eyes went wide as Seth smiled awkwardly at me. Not that I'm a classically trained chef myself, but I couldn't even finish the thought before I burst out laughing. Next time, you should pay closer attention to the recipe. It'll probably save you some money on your grocery bills. Oh, that reminds me. I stood up and walked over to the front door, picking up the bag with the wine that I had left there. Seth didn't have a cooler or bucket, so I made do with a few scoops of ice and a narrow, deep mixing bowl. I set the wine gently on the kitchen counter near the table. A fancy date deserves a fancy drink. I picked up some wine on my way. I didn't know what you were making, but clearly it wouldn't have mattered. He glanced over at the label and smiled. It's probably too nice of a wine to drink with cookies, but the thought is appreciated all the same. That said, you've got remarkable taste in wines. Of course I do. Of course I do. Just because we met in a nightclub doesn't mean I don't enjoy more refined drinks. I didn't mean to offend. You've got an excellent palate for wine, then. Maybe you should consider looking for a job as a sommelier? I don't know how to say that. I'm not sure I'm ready to pursue this as a vocation. At least, not yet. Well, we'll see how well it pairs with the cookies once they're done cooling. That said, we should eat before too much of the food gets cold. The 2 of us dug in, filling up our plates and heading back to the coffee table to eat. It was exciting and relaxing, a host of emotions all at the same time. It was easy to forget my anxieties and just lose myself in the moment. Seth was equally chatty, discussing his many attempts to inspire himself, the seemingly crazy lengths he'd gone to in the hopes of broadening his horizons. I'm embarrassed to say, I actually drank half the bottle. The revolting taste still haunts me even after 12 awful cups of mouthwash and a handful of mints. I'm still unable to go anywhere near fresh something. Soon enough, dinner was set aside, along with enough leftovers to feed an army. He insisted I take some home, not only because he didn't have the space, but he wanted to thank Kobe again. We sat on the couch, relaxing and nibbling on a cookie every now and again. It was then that I noticed the large curtain across from us, closed but already a ruddy hue from the sunset. Seth smiled as he noticed my interest, getting up and pulling gently on the cord. The wispy curtains parted, and in a moment I saw the whole city spread out before me. Windows glistened in golds and reds, and I could even see my own house far in the distance, just above the horizon. Seth stepped next to me, touching a paw gently to the glass. It's really why I picked this place to move after college. The rent was absurd, and the building was, to me, gaudy and pretentious. But when I was in this empty room, I couldn't make it to the regular viewing, and convinced the realtor to give me one later that day. I was tired, grumpy from seeing my grades on my final. Once I looked out that window, though, I saw the harvest moon hanging there, almost transparent in the twilight. The clouds were a deep purple, and a few flickers of red spread across them. That cinched the deal. I signed the lease that second. This view was something I'd been looking for, maybe a piece in a bigger puzzle. I found it, though, and it's been a source of comfort even in the worst of it. Hearing how much it meant, what kind of an impact it had on him, all I could think was how empty this place would be if he left. When he left. My silence drew a curious look from him. Gently, he touched my shoulder, and I snapped back to the moment. What's wrong? You aren't enjoying the view? Oh God, what do we say? It's not the view, it's nothing. No, you shouldn't keep secrets. It's not the view. Have you thought about what will happen next? You could get a publishing contract. You could see your name in print. But think about how much you'd have to travel. How little you'd actually be around. I know. I've been trying to forget about it. It's likely one of the reasons I wound up cooking for 2,000 instead of for 2. I'm scared, Samuel. I don't want to go through this again. What do you mean, again? This isn't your first book? He shook his head and smiled. I need to show you something. I'll be right back. He stepped away, leaving me there in the fading sunlight, gazing out over the sea of buildings. I wanted us to stay in that moment. Stay right here until there was nothing else. It was selfish, maybe even petty, but I wanted it more than anything else right then. He stepped out of the bedroom and back to my side. Touching my shoulder, he drew my attention to what was in his paw. It was a sun-bleached, tattered notebook, one I had never seen before. He held it out to me. Go ahead, read it. It's embarrassing, but it's something I need to share. Confused, I opened it. Mostly it was pages of rough doodles, a few snippets of bad poetry, and some notes on classes. The few dates I saw placed in it probably in his high school years. However, one thing stood out to me. It was a short, clumsy, but innocent story of a young man who admired a fellow student. In awkwardly beautiful prose, it spoke of the distance, the ache and the loathing that he could not approach the person he desired. It ended on a silly, sappy note, the focus of his affections finding the notebook and falling something in love. A short note followed, though the name of its intended reader was scratched out in black ink. It read, I can't say this with my voice, so I used my words. I love you. I closed the notebook and looked up at Seth. It was my first story. He was the first person who inspired me enough to try to write. Down the road, I may remember as some fleeting high school crush, but the wound still aches sometime. You never showed it to him? No. I did. What little confidence I had propelled my hand forward while we were in the library. He read it, page after page, in complete silence. When he was done and looked back into my expectant eyes, he said nothing. He simply laid the notebook on the table in front of me, got out of his chair, and left the room. I didn't see him the next day, or the day after. When I finally asked someone, they told me his parents had moved and he'd gone with them. Seth. For 2 years, I assumed it was me, that I was the reason he left. Part of me still thinks that, and all of me thought I would never recover. The folly of youth and the power of infatuation. Maybe you were more right than you thought. Maybe my experience would be better spent on romance novels. I wanted to say something, anything to turn the conversation away from this topic. I opened my mouth to speak, but halted when I saw Seth's lips spread into a smile. What I want to say, what I'm saying as awkwardly as I did in that notebook, is that I care about you. Intentionally or not, you drew me back out of that haze of loss and regret. You were enough to draw a whole book out of me. You're the reason I'm here, that I even got here in the first place. And I'm not going to let you go, not like I did the last time I had this chance. He stepped forward and slid his paws into my hands, pressing himself close as he kissed my cheek softly. So let's forget about it for the moment. Let's just enjoy this for a few more minutes before your practicality and my anxiety bring it back up. It's not going away. Alright. For you, I can try. I can't swear I won't think about it, but I'll try to stay here. That's all I need right now. It's been too perfect of an evening to let it go so soon. Besides, I seem to remember our celebrations requiring more than just dinner. I promised dancing, too. Releasing my hand for the moment, his paw tapped a button just below the TV stand. A moment or two later, after a hiss and a whir, a soft, simple melody began to play over hidden speakers. His paw slid back into my hand and squeezed softly as he drew close to me and began to sway in slow, measured time. It's not the same music as the club, but at least we can talk over this. I squeezed his paws back softly, drawing him close as the two of us began to glide across a soft, carpeted floor. His eyes remained locked on mine, glimmering in the dimming sunlight as all but the dance faded from my mind. It didn't make it any easier, holding him close to me, feeling his silken fur against my skin. I didn't want to lose this either, but could I in good conscience be so selfish? Seth lowered his head, pressing his cheek against my chest and purring softly, almost humming with the music. I couldn't help but smile in return. I wasn't quite sure when the music stopped, our bodies still pressed close, but something stirred us enough from that embrace. I glanced at the clock and sighed softly. Please, don't leave. I don't want to. I hope you know that by now, but dinner's over. It's nearly dark. Then, stay here for the night. Stay with me. You're beautiful, Samuel. Intoxicating and amazing, and 100 other words I know but just fall short on my tongue. It's not fair to use your writerly wiles on me, you know. You know what I say? In this moment, in this perfect moment, I say fuck what's fair. I say I want you, Samuel. Do you want me too? The words caught in my throat, my body tensing as he lifted his lips upwards and pressed them firmly against my own. His paws released my hands, wrapping around my waist and folding one over the other at the small of my back. It had been too long since I felt this, the aching need of another, the passionate embrace. My hands came to rest on his shoulders, cupping them and pulling his body even tighter against my own. A gasp escaped his lips, swallowed eagerly by my tongue before it could escape. It was as if a dam had burst, my needs overwhelming my senses. It was no longer about loss, but the moment slipping away. It was about us, together in all ways, exploring each other. Oh my god. 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 Holy hell. Okay, that happened. That happened. Oh my god. I dreamed vividly that night of Seth beneath me, of the warmth and softness of his fur. I saw him standing, smiling, his glasses perched on his muzzle and notebook in hand. I saw him walk away from me, my hand outstretched as with each step he grew dimmer, fuzzier, until I could no longer see him. I remember sighing softly and then a light. I woke up in his bed, covers tucked gently around me to the sounds of the shower in the distance. The sunlight streamed in through the windows, making me blink in reflex until my eyes could adjust. The dream still lingered in my mind, my eyes watching. I got out of bed, making my way into the living room. Good morning. I admit it was an unorthodox way to keep you here for the night, but I have no regrets. I hope you don't either. Do we flirt? Okay. Oh my god. That actually happened. That actually happened. Okay. None at all. Beyond the obvious lack of toothbrush or my favorite body wash. I hope we can rectify those issues soon. I laughed for a moment, stopping only as I watched Seth's expression fall. His gaze lingered at something beyond my shoulder, and as I turned to look, I also drew quiet. The tiny white box atop his end table near the door gave off a steady red blink at regular intervals. It meant he had a message, and both of us knew what that could portend. I saw the caller ID this morning. It was from Donna, Nick's agent. Shouldn't you listen to it? I mean, you've come so far, and... I choked on the sentence, swallowing the words that I didn't want to hear. I don't know if I can. It can only mean change and upheaval. I don't know if I'm ready for that particular part of my life. We've both been hiding from this too long. You said it yourself. You don't want me to go anywhere, and I don't want to go anywhere either. Once you know what your life has in store, we can make plans. We can see about making this work. Alright. You're right. We found each other amongst hundreds. We can deal with this. He stood over the machine for a long moment, staring down at the pulsating light. I stood, walking behind him and placed my hands on his shoulders. He smiled back at me for a moment, before his finger touched the button. Hi there, Seth. This is Donna from the Independence Literacy Agency. Nick passed on a section of your work to me, and I was calling to discuss it with you. We both held our breath, my throat dry as I waited what seemed to be an eternity for the woman's voice to continue. It's surprisingly good, particularly for an early draft. Don't get me wrong, it needs an editor, but I think that's something we can do for you. Please, come by the office sometime today before 1. I'll let my receptionist know to expect you. If you can't make it, call me back and we'll reschedule. We did it. We actually did it. No, you did it. You are the writer. Seth turned to face me, a smile still prominent on his face. No, I mean we. You're in this too, remember? I chuckled to myself and glanced over at the clock. It was just a little past 11. Well then, I guess this half of we should get in the shower. No good showing up to our new agency naked and disheveled. That's the spirit. Unfortunately, I think my clothes have seen better days at this point. I'm sure we can find you something to get by. I'm afraid I don't have anything formal myself. Okay, I'm sorry to cut this short, but I'm going to end this episode here. We had a lot of stuff happen in this episode. We had the date with Seth, which ended in us getting together in the bedroom, because that actually happened. Oh my god, that actually happened. So, hopefully you like this episode. I am having so much fun playing this game, and if you like this game too, then please leave a like on the video, leave a comment down below. If you want to see me go through the other characters, which I know there are other characters. So if you do want to see me go through the other characters, then please leave a comment down below. But I'm ending this episode here, and I will see all you guys tomorrow in the next video. Goodbye.